Oh, book crush, oh no. Hello, welcome to Sound and Fury Book Reviews. As usual, I am Tina. Today I'm doing a book review of Demon's Reign by Ben Galley and David Estes. This is a 2022 fantasy novel. It's self-published. There are no spoilers in this review. I listened to this book on Audible. At first, I wasn't sure how I felt about the narrator. His voice sounded older than the main character should have been because it's in first person. But once I got into it a bit, I adjusted, and the way he did the other characters was absolutely fantastic. So by the end, I really enjoyed it, and I would definitely do another one by him. First person, you say? Yes, indeed. I very much enjoyed, in fact, a first-person book. So that means, by my exacting standards, that this book is fantastic. But before I get ahead of myself, Demon's Reign is an enthralling, sprawling fantasy with interesting world building and very fun characters. What is it about? Tarkosi Terrelta is a nobody who will save his world from demons and the hellfire they bring. A third born of a shamed family, Tarkosi's lot in life is to spend his days as a worker, feeding temperamental lancewings under a harsh master. His days in the bloodwood city of Shalgara are full of drudgery, tedium, and pain, his own ambitions cast aside in the name of order. That is, until demons from a broken world invade the forest realm of the Swathe, and an accident born of violence and dark magic intertwines Tarkosi's fate with the greatest among them. Forced onto the front lines of a war forgotten by history, Tarkosi must balance battling the royal demon bound to him with the rapid progression of the magical abilities its presence has bestowed. Risking everything, he will need to tread a thin line between hero and heretic to keep Shalgara from falling into ruin and chaos. What drew me into this book at first? Well, obviously the idea of a demon inhabiting a person's body. I love the idea of venom. The first movie was a lot of fun. The second, Anyway, I also love Prosper's Demon, that short novella that I read this year and never reviewed, because my review was basically I effing loved it. As well as other stories of that nature. I'm not super fond of religious possession stories, mainly because I don't find them scary at all. I did like that one, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, because of the court case aspect. I thought that was cool. But generally, religious possession I don't care about. But when it comes to a demon living or an entity living in a person's body and they have to coexist, I find that so much fun. I guess conscious possession or body fusing, you would call it. I don't know. Anyway. I also really enjoyed Ben Galley's novel I read last year. The one with the girl on the cover who had an axe. I can't remember what it's called. I will obviously post the cover here. So going into this, I knew that this novel would be an epic fantasy with extensive world building and great battles, and it totally was. First, the world. We have a forested world, as you've heard from the description, called the Swathe, where people live at the top of these massive trees. There are other cities, of course, that aren't in the trees, but Shalgara, where this takes place, definitely does. The social structure is based on this concept called blood laws, a very tiered and hierarchical system that serves to keep the workers from rising above their station. We've seen this before, especially in a world called Earth, am I right? But what's fascinating about this one is that it's a matriarchy. What I loved about this was how it was approached. Matriarchies are not common, especially in fantasy, and when they are, it's often women living in a utopian setting without men, or just reverse patriarchy, where everything sucks for the men instead of everything sucking for the women. This book, though, doesn't fall into these reductionist traps. It's a society where the head of state is a queen, basically, who passes the torch to a daughter. So it has nepotism. Rather than having aspects of misandry, though, we simply have a world where sexism doesn't seem to exist. The highest ranking general is a woman, by merit, not because she is a woman, and there are just as many women overseers and bosses as there are men. It doesn't seem like there are gendered occupations or even gender roles. It was absolutely refreshing, not because it's a perfect system. The blood laws are highly classist and they are problematic in the story, but the fact that being a matriarchy was not a major part of the story at all, that was the part that I thought was so interesting. It's a minor part, really, that has no bearing on the plot itself, and the normalization of non-sexism in the book is fantastic. It definitely proves you can have a fantasy that doesn't need to be based on Western medieval gender roles to still feel like a fantasy. Take note, writers. The characters are absolutely wonderful. Arco is the main character, a young man trying to find his place, but held down by the shadow of his dispossessed father and the nobles who despise him because of said father. He's a likable character, as I think we can all understand the frustration of not fitting in anywhere, especially when you're young, of having hopes and dreams squashed by outside forces, and growing up. And he was cute. He makes mistakes, he gets a bit cocky, and then learns from his hubris, and he's loyal. He's a good guy, and I really liked him. He's like a little sweetheart. The other characters were great, mainly because most of them are like a little older than me, which made the novel more realistic than a bunch of like 20-year-olds jumping around commanding battles. Esterel, the general, is a badass and tough as nails. Italaway is perky and quirky and has this giant cat for a pet, but she's also very confident. Tarko's mom and sister are great foils to him and they're very funny. Rawlish, his love interest, was an obvious love interest from the start, in that he was clearly crushing on her the moment he met her, but wouldn't admit it to himself. And she has no idea what she sees in him at first, but I like that dynamic. But I adore their cute little side plot. Pell, a blind older man, is the typical kind of Obi-Wan mentor that growls and grunts a lot. There are some other minor characters, like this guy named Hydeck, who's a pretentious turd that you love to hate. And then we have my two favorite characters. There's a lot of characters in this book, but my two favorite would be Cerisi, the demon, of course. She is an effing riot. She's mean, demanding, insulting, and just like Esterel, an absolute badass. In fact, I was waiting for them to clash. I was like, that'd be so cool. And then we have Red Eye. I don't know why, but grouchy, somewhat dorky wizards are definitely my type when it comes to men in fantasy. So I was like, oh, a book crush, oh no. The authors, if you happen to watch this and you haven't written book 2 yet, you want to give them an overly chatty girlfriend named Tina, because I would totally be on board for that. You can use my likeness for sure. Yeah, my book boyfriend, yes, Red Eye. Anyway, the characters work really well as they play off one another. They have fun discussions and they work well as a team. They have a great dynamic that I really enjoyed, and it didn't feel forced at all. It just felt natural, and I just kind of wanted to be part of their group. The battle scenes are fun and interesting. They did go a little long for my taste in some parts, but the descriptions are vivid and it wasn't the same kind of battle over and over again. There was things about it that were different each time and really well done. The one thing that isn't unique about the story is the magic. It's basically just Avatar: The Last Airbender, as there are 4 elements, and then there's a dash of Diablo as well, in that you have to down some mana called Nectra before you can cast. But really, there's enough unique and fun things about this book. I don't care if the magic was a bit basic. In fact, it was nice to not have this long-winded explanation about a magic system. I was just kind of like, yep, I know that for sure. Okay, good. I will warn you, though, the story does take some time to get going. The demon doesn't show up for quite a number of chapters. I can't tell you because I was listening to an audiobook, but like quite a while. I was kind of like, the demons. But that's how the book gets you. By the time you get to Cerisi, you're well invested in the story and understand the backstory behind Tarko and the Swathe, so their interactions didn't need to be interrupted by any exposition. You could they could just go. It was great. The overarching plot unfolds kind of how you expect, like overall, but the side quests and minor twists make it very, very fun. It doesn't meander, but it also doesn't feel like too rushed. I would argue that the pacing is excellent, in fact, and kept you very much engaged. I was like waiting to listen to it on my audiobook. And it's very long too. It's like a 24-hour audiobook. The prose is good, nothing overly lyrical, nothing particularly hilarious, but it flows nicely and gets the job done. Overall, I must say I absolutely loved this thing. I can't wait for the second one, and let me add, that cover, it's killer. It's gorgeous. It's a beautiful cover. If you like fantasy, definitely give this one a shot. It's so much fun. It's a testament to indie publishing, and definitely check it out. And I'm not joking about that girlfriend for Red Eye. Seriously, reach out to me. My email is below.